The Lawbringer's arrival. The air was heavy with dust and heat. The human colony on Relos 3 was small, built from metal scraps and old Earth tech. People here had escaped war, hunger, and the Federation's control, hoping to live a quiet life on the edge of the galaxy. But peace never lasted long in a universe full of hungry empires. Ethan Kane, a stubborn mechanic, wiped sweat from his forehead. He had just finished fixing a power generator when the sky cracked open. A deep hum filled the air, and a massive ship appeared above the colony. It wasn't Federation, nor was it pirate tech. It was something else, something ancient. The colony alarms screamed. People ran for cover as the ship descended, its surface glowing with blue lines, shifting like liquid metal. Then, in a flash of white light, he appeared. A figure taller than any human, wrapped in dark armor, stepped out of the ship. His helmet was smooth, reflecting the panicked faces of the colonists. His cape fluttered behind him as he walked forward, his movements slow, controlled, like a predator deciding who to strike first. Someone screamed, "Federation, mercenary." But Ethan knew better. This man wasn't from the Federation. He wasn't human. The alien stopped in the middle of the colony, scanning the crowd. Then he spoke, his voice deep and cold. "One of you must come with me." Silence. Fear crawled over the colonists. No one moved. Ethan, standing near his workshop, narrowed his eyes. "Who are you?" he demanded. The alien turned to him. His helmet retracted, revealing a face unlike anything Ethan had seen before. His skin was silver, his eyes burning with a strange golden fire. Not a robot. Not a cyborg. Something more. "I am a Lawbringer," he said. "And you, Ethan Kane. Only you can fulfill what is coming." Ethan's stomach dropped. He had never met this creature before. How did he know his name? People began murmuring, stepping away from Ethan like he was cursed. "What do you mean?" Ethan said, forcing his voice to stay steady. The Lawbringer tilted his head. "You are not ready to know, but you must leave with me now." Ethan laughed bitterly. "Yeah. And if I say no?" The air around the Lawbringer shimmered. The sky darkened for a moment, as if something immense was watching from above. The colony's lights flickered. "I am not asking," the Lawbringer said. "I am telling." The colonists backed away even more, fear turning into panic. Ethan clenched his fists. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't special. He was a mechanic, a man who had run from war, from Federation rule. He had nothing to offer a creature like this. "I don't know who you think I am," Ethan said, "but I'm not going anywhere with you." The Lawbringer smiled, not in amusement, but like someone expecting this answer. "Then I will show you why you must." He lifted his hand. The sky split open. A symbol of fire and gold burned in the air, so bright it scorched the ground beneath it. Ethan fell to his knees, his chest burning, his veins glowing with the same golden light as the Lawbringer's eyes. His head pounded with visions, a war in the stars, entire worlds crumbling, a shadowy figure reaching for him. The vision snapped away, and Ethan gasped, shaking. His hand still glowed faintly, as if something inside him had awakened. The Lawbringer knelt beside him. His voice, for the first time, softened. "You were chosen long before you were born, Ethan Kane," he said. "Deny it all you want, but fate will find you." Ethan looked at the alien through gritted teeth. "You want me to go with you?" he growled. "Then tell me the truth. What the hell am I?" The Lawbringer's golden eyes burned brighter. "You," he said, "are the last hope of humanity." Ethan's world shattered. The awakening of Ethan. Ethan Kane woke up to the feeling of weightlessness. His body floated in darkness, but he wasn't in space. He wasn't anywhere. A voice called his name, distant but powerful, vibrating through his bones. Ethan Kane. He tried to move, but there was nothing to push against. He wasn't even sure if he still had a body. All around him, Golden symbols drifted like fireflies, flickering in and out of existence. He reached for them, but they vanished the moment his fingers touched them. Then the visions came. He saw planets burning, their surfaces cracking open like eggshells, swallowed by a force older than time itself. He saw creatures with bodies made of shadow, tearing apart entire civilizations, their eyes hollow and endless. And then he saw something worse. Himself, standing alone on a battlefield of stars, his hands glowing with the same golden fire as the Lawbringer's eyes. A warning, a prophecy, a fate he never wanted. Ethan gasped as the vision shattered. Suddenly, he was falling, wind roaring past him. He braced for impact, and woke up inside the Lawbringer's ship, a prison or a rescue. The room was dimly lit, the walls made of smooth metal that seemed to shift and pulse like it was alive. Ethan sat up too fast, his head spinning. His veins still glowed faintly, the heat of the vision lingering beneath his skin. He wasn't alone. The Lawbringer stood in the corner, arms crossed, watching him with unblinking golden eyes. Ethan scowled. "What the hell did you do to me?" The Lawbringer didn't answer right away. He tilted his head slightly, as if studying Ethan like a puzzle he had almost solved. "You are awakening," he finally said. "Yeah." Ethan swung his legs over the side of the bed. "Then how about you tell me what I'm waking up to? Because I sure as hell didn't sign up for this." The Lawbringer stepped forward. "You were never meant to be ordinary." Ethan barked out at a dry laugh. "Well, that's news to me. I fix engines, not fate." The Lawbringer ignored the sarcasm. "Your blood is not like the others." Ethan froze. "What?" The alien turned his palm upward, and the golden symbols from Ethan's vision appeared again, hovering between them like tiny stars. "Humanity was never meant to be weak," the Lawbringer said. "Once, long ago, you were something more. But time, war, and betrayal took that from you. The celestial enforcers ensured it. They wiped out every last remnant of what you could have been. But in you, it still remains." Ethan stared at the symbols, feeling a strange pull in his chest. "You mean?" He swallowed. "I'm not human." The Lawbringer hesitated. "You are. More than human." Ethan clenched his fists. He didn't want to hear this. He had spent years running from destiny, from war, from anyone who tried to tell him what he was supposed to be. Now this alien was saying he was some lost piece of a forgotten past. "No," he refused. "I don't care," he said firmly. "I don't care what's in my blood or what you think I'm meant to do. Take me back." The Lawbringer's expression didn't change. "I cannot." Ethan shot to his feet. "Then drop me off on the nearest colony. I'll find my own way home." The Lawbringer remained still. There is no home to return to. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. What do you mean?" The Lawbringer lifted a hand, and a hologram of Relos 3 appeared in the air. Ethan's stomach twisted. The colony, his colony, was gone. Blackened ruins where homes once stood. No movement. No life. Destroyed. "No," Ethan whispered. The Lawbringer's voice was solemn. "They came for you. They will always come for you." Ethan's hands shook. His mind screamed for this to be a lie. But deep down, he knew it was true. The celestial enforcers, the ones the Lawbringer mentioned, had wiped out the colony because of him. He fell back onto the bed, his body suddenly heavy with guilt and rage. "The hunt begins." The ship lurched, alarms flashing red. A robotic voice echoed through the room. "Warning. Hostile fleet detected. Incoming attack in 30 seconds. Ethan's shock snapped into focus. "They found us." The Lawbringer's golden eyes darkened. They were always following. A screen flickered to life, showing the view outside the ship. Ethan's chest tightened. Sleek black warships surrounded them, their weapons charging up. Ethan barely had time to react before the first blast rocked the ship, sending him stumbling. The Lawbringer didn't even flinch. Instead, he pressed a button on his wrist, and the walls shifted. A hidden door slid open, revealing something Ethan didn't expect. A suit of armor. Not just any armor. It looked alive, made of the same liquid metal as the Lawbringer's ship. The design was strange, almost human. The Lawbringer turned to Ethan. "You wish to leave," he said, stepping aside. "Then fight your way out." Ethan stared at the armor, his pulse racing. The enemy was out there, coming for him. He could refuse this. He could stay stubborn. Or he could survive. Something in his gut told him that if he didn't put on that armor, he would never make it out alive. Ethan reached for it. The metal slithered around his fingers, molding to his body like it had been waiting for him. As the final piece locked into place, the ship's alarm screamed one last warning. Impact in 5, 4, 3. Ethan clenched his fists. His veins burned with golden light. He was done running. The pursuit across stars. The moment Ethan's fingers touched the armor, it moved like liquid, crawling over his arms, chest, and legs with an almost sentient will. It wasn't like anything he had ever seen. It was alive, molding itself to his body, adapting to his shape as if it had always belonged to him. Then the pain hit. A deep, burning shockwave pulsed through his veins, igniting every nerve in his body. His vision blurred as symbols flashed in his mind. Alien code, lost memories, weapon systems he didn't understand but somehow recognized. His muscles clenched, his heart hammered, and for a brief second, he thought the suit was killing him. Then, just as suddenly, the pain vanished. The ship shuddered under another direct hit, alarms blaring as the hull took damage. The Lawbringer moved swiftly, unfazed by the chaos. "Can you move?" he asked, his golden eyes locked onto Ethan. Ethan took a deep breath. The suit felt natural, like a second skin. His limbs felt lighter, his vision sharper, and his instincts different. He wasn't just wearing armor. It was merging with him, enhancing him in ways he couldn't yet understand. He clenched his fists, feeling power ripple through his body. "Yeah," he said, his voice steadier than he expected. "I can move." The Lawbringer nodded once. "Good, because we are out of time." The enemy reveals itself. Outside the ship, the celestial enforcer fleet closed in. Black, dagger-shaped warships, their hulls pulsing with eerie blue lights, surrounded them in a tight formation. "Why are they after me?" Ethan asked, his voice tight. The Lawbringer moved quickly, bringing up a holographic star map. Red markers blinked across the system, tracking enemy movements. "Because they fear you," he said simply. "They know what you are, or rather, what you could become." Ethan's jaw clenched. What the hell did that mean? Before he could ask, the ship's computer cut in. "Enemy boarding craft detected. They are coming inside." Ethan barely had time to react before the first explosion rocked the ship, blowing apart a section of the outer hull. The air filled with the deafening screech of metal tearing apart. And then, they came. Figures in obsidian armor, tall and eerily silent, poured through the breach, their weapons humming with cold energy. Their movements were too precise, too unnatural, as if they weren't entirely organic. Ethan's instincts kicked in before his brain did. The moment the first enforcer lifted a weapon, his body moved on its own. He sidestepped, faster than he should have been able to, feeling the armor anticipate his movements. His right arm flicked up, and the armor responded. A blade formed out of thin air, extending from his wrist, a weapon of pure energy, glowing the same golden color as the symbols in his visions. The first enforcer lunged at him. Ethan twisted, his newfound speed sending him spinning past the attack. Without thinking, he drove his blade upward, slicing clean through the enforcer's chest plate. The enemy collapsed, its body flickering, like a hologram that had just been deleted from reality. Ethan barely had time to process what had happened before the next attacker was already upon him. He ducked, feeling the heat of a plasma blast graze past his shoulder. His free hand came up, and the suit reacted again. A shield materialized, blocking another incoming strike. He shouldn't have known how to do that. But he did. It was like the knowledge had always been buried inside him, waiting to be unlocked. The Lawbringer fought beside him, moving with calculated precision, his own twin blades flashing as he cut down enemies in smooth, practiced motions. "Focus, Ethan," he barked between attacks. "Your armor is bonded to you now. Let it guide you." Ethan gritted his teeth, easier said than done. But then, something clicked. The armor didn't just react to his movements. It was linked to his mind. It was feeding him data, predicting enemy strikes, adjusting his stance before he even realized he needed to move. He wasn't just fighting. He was evolving. The Great Escape. More enforcers stormed the ship. Too many. The Lawbringer's ship was losing power, its defenses failing. They couldn't win this fight. Ethan knew it. The Lawbringer knew it. "We need to get out of here," Ethan shouted, blocking another blast. The Lawbringer didn't answer right away. His golden eyes flickered toward the navigation console, then back to Ethan. "We are going to jump." Ethan barely had time to react before the Lawbringer slammed his palm against the control panel. The ship's emergency hyperdrive roared to life, the engines shaking violently as power surged through the failing systems. The enforcers realized too late what was happening. A deep boom filled the air, and in the blink of an eye, the ship vanished, lost in the void. When Ethan came to, he was on the floor, his ears ringing. The ship had stopped moving, but something felt off. He groaned, pushing himself up. Where are we?" The Lawbringer stood near the viewport, staring at the swirling abyss of black and violet energy outside. Not space, not a star system, something else. "We are not where I intended," the Lawbringer admitted. "We have entered the rift." Ethan frowned. "The what?" The Lawbringer turned, his expression unreadable. "The place between places, a broken reality. No one who enters leaves unchanged." Asterisk. Ethan stared at him, his heart pounding. "So what does that mean for us?" Asterisk. The Lawbringer's gaze darkened. "It means, Ethan Kane, the real test begins now. The forbidden power." Ethan stared out of the viewport, his breath caught in his throat. The space outside wasn't just dark, it was wrong. Swirling violet and black clouds stretched endlessly, twisting in impossible patterns. Stars flickered in and out of existence, like dying embers struggling against an eternal void. Shadows moved between the clouds, shapes with no clear form, shifting as if watching. A deep hum pulsed through the ship, vibrating in his bones. "This isn't space," Ethan muttered. "Where the hell are we?" The Lawbringer stood motionless, his golden eyes glowing faintly. "We are in the rift." His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it, something Ethan hadn't heard before. Uncertainty. Ethan turned toward him. "You said it's a broken reality. What does that mean?" The Lawbringer slowly shifted his gaze to Ethan. "The rift is older than the universe itself. It is the space between existence and oblivion. Few enter, and even fewer return." Ethan exhaled sharply. "And you just threw us into it." The Lawbringer's expression didn't change. "I saved your life." Ethan scowled. "By dropping us into a death trap." Before the Lawbringer could respond, the ship lurched violently, sending Ethan staggering forward. A horrible screeching noise echoed through the walls, like something was crawling across the hull. Ethan grabbed the nearest console. "Tell me that's just turbulence." The Lawbringer didn't move. "No, we are not alone. The rift's guardians." The lights in the ship dimmed, flickering as if something was draining their power. Ethan turned to the viewport again, his heart pounding. The shifting shadows outside the ship had grown larger. He could see figures moving within them, but they weren't ships. They were alive. Tall, featureless beings, their bodies made of swirling darkness, hovered outside. Their forms shifted constantly, never fully solid. and their eyes, if they had any, were locked on him. A deep voice whispered in Ethan's mind. Not words, not language, just an intense pressure, an overwhelming presence demanding something from him. Ethan's hands clenched into fists. What are they? The Lawbringer didn't look away. The keepers of the rift. Ethan swallowed hard. They don't look friendly. They are neither friend nor enemy, the Lawbringer said. They are here for one reason: to test us. Before Ethan could ask what that meant, the ship shook again, this time harder. Then, without warning, the walls of the ship faded away. Ethan barely had time to react before he was falling, yanked out into the endless void. The trial of the rift. Ethan hit the ground, except there was no ground. He landed on something solid, yet when he looked down there was nothing beneath his feet. Just endless darkness stretching forever. A deep rumbling voice spoke from all around him. Ethan Kane, do you know what you are? Ethan spun, searching for the source. But there was nothing. Just the shifting void and the presence of something watching him. I'm a mechanic, he muttered, fists clenched. No, that is what you were. What are you now? Ethan gritted his teeth. You tell me. A sudden force slammed into his mind, like 1,000 voices speaking at once. His vision filled with flashes of war, fire, and death. He saw himself in 1,000 different forms, a warrior, a leader, a destroyer. Then he saw something worse. A mirror appeared before him, floating in the void. And the reflection wasn't his own. It was him, but different. His armor was blackened, his eyes pure golden fire, his hands crackling with power that could tear stars apart. A voice, cold and sharp, whispered from the reflection. You are the last remnant of what humanity was meant to be. A being beyond flesh, a force beyond time. But will you become salvation or destruction? The reflection moved on its own, stepping out of the mirror. Before Ethan could react, it attacked. The battle against himself. Ethan barely had time to dodge as his own reflection lunged forward, moving faster than light. He rolled, barely escaping a blinding energy blast that shattered the space around him. His other self turned, its expression unreadable. Then it spoke. You are weak. Ethan gritted his teeth. I've heard that before. He launched forward, striking out with his energy blade, but the reflection caught it effortlessly, twisting his wrist and sending Ethan flying backward. Ethan hit the invisible ground, gasping for air. His reflection tilted its head. You cannot win. You fight against what you are meant to be. Ethan pushed himself up, wiping blood from his lip. Yeah. Then what am I meant to be? The reflection's golden eyes burned brighter. More. Ethan's breath caught. He didn't know why, but the word felt true. It echoed in his bones, in his blood, in the very fabric of who he was. A memory rose in his mind, one he had never seen before. A world long lost, a people who once ruled the stars, a war that tore them apart. And in the center of it all, him. Not just a man, not just human, something beyond both. You are waking up, the reflection said. But the question remains, will you embrace it? Ethan looked down at his hands. The golden light flickered in his veins, stronger than before. Then he lifted his gaze. Let's find out. With a roar, he charged forward. The turning point. The battle raged, but Ethan adapted. Every strike, every movement, his armor adjusted, pushing him to match his reflection's power. For the first time, the reflection hesitated. Ethan saw his opening. He struck, not with his blade, but with his mind. The rift's energy exploded outward, engulfing them both. For a moment, Ethan saw everything. The past, the future, the truth of what he was. Then, darkness. Awakening. Again. Ethan's eyes snapped open. He was back in the Lawbringer's ship, gasping for breath, his body burning with power. The Lawbringer stood nearby, watching. You survived the trial, he said. Ethan sat up, his head spinning. What? What happened? The Lawbringer's golden eyes met his. You are changing, Ethan Kane. The rift has awakened what was buried in you. Ethan's hands still glowed faintly. The power hadn't faded. He looked at the Lawbringer, realization dawning. And that means they're going to come after me even harder, aren't they? The Lawbringer's voice was grim. Yes, and this time, they will not stop until you are dead. Ethan took a deep breath. No more running. No more denying it. He was ready. Betrayal and the last war. Ethan sat in silence, his hands still glowing faintly from the power that had awakened within him. His body felt different, stronger, lighter, more attuned to something he couldn't fully understand. The rift had changed him. And now, there was no turning back. The Lawbringer stood near the controls, his golden eyes watching Ethan with something that almost resembled concern. You passed the test, he said, but you are not yet complete. Ethan exhaled sharply. Great. So what happens now? More cryptic riddles? More shadowy enemies trying to kill me? The Lawbringer didn't answer. Instead, he reached toward the ship's control panel and pressed a sequence of buttons. The rift outside began to warp and twist, and a portal, a swirling mass of unstable energy, opened before them. We must leave before they return, the Lawbringer said. Ethan narrowed his eyes. They? As if answering his question, the ship shook violently, alarms blaring as something massive loomed outside. Ethan turned toward the viewport, and his breath caught. A colossal entity, shaped like a burning eclipse, hovered just beyond the rift's edge. Its body was not solid, not entirely real, but its presence pressed down on Ethan's mind like a crushing weight. The Lawbringer's expression hardened. The celestial enforcers sent a warden. Ethan swallowed hard. A what? A being forged to erase those like you. We cannot fight it. Yet. The ship's engines roared, and the portal dragged them forward, pulling them out of the rift just as the warden moved to strike. For a moment, Ethan felt a presence reach for him, a force so overwhelming it nearly pulled him back into the void. Then, the ship snapped into real space, a broken empire. The stars returned. The crushing weight of the rift vanished, leaving Ethan gasping for breath. The ship had emerged near a dying planet, its surface cracked with deep wounds, massive floating debris fields circling above it. Ethan turned to the Lawbringer. Where are we? The alien's golden eyes gleamed. The last stronghold of what remains of your people. Ethan stiffened. My people. The Lawbringer nodded. Humanity was never as weak as you were taught to believe. Long ago, you were warriors, explorers, conquerors. You built an empire that even the celestial enforcers feared. Ethan's heart pounded. He had seen glimpses of it before, in the rift, in his visions, but hearing it confirmed sent a chill down his spine. Then what happened? He asked. The Lawbringer's gaze darkened. You were betrayed. Ethan frowned. By who? Before the Lawbringer could answer, a new voice echoed through the ship. By me. Ethan spun around, his instincts kicking in. A figure stood near the airlock, stepping out of the shadows. A man. No, not just a man. His face was eerily similar to Ethan's, but older, colder, with eyes that burned with the same golden fire Ethan had begun to recognize in himself. His armor was sleek and dark, inscribed with ancient runes that pulsed with power. Ethan tensed. Who the hell are you? The man smirked. You already know. Ethan's stomach twisted. He did. He had seen this face in his visions, in the rift. This man wasn't just another enemy. He was one of them. One of the lost warriors of humanity's past. The Lawbringer spoke first, his voice colder than Ethan had ever heard. Sirius Kane. Ethan's pulse spiked. Kane. His name. Ethan's eyes flickered between the Lawbringer and the man standing before him. You're sitting ease. Your ancestor, the Lawbringer finished. The one who led humanity's last war, and the one who doomed it. Sirius Cain chuckled. Now, that's a little dramatic. Ethan clenched his fists. You betrayed us. Sirius tilted his head. I did what was necessary. Humanity was dying. The celestial enforcers were too strong. We couldn't win. So I made a choice. Ethan's skin prickled. What choice? Sirius' golden eyes locked onto him. I surrendered our power in exchange for survival. The room fell deathly silent. Ethan's hands shook with rage. You let them erase us. Sirius shrugged. I let them bleach us. There's a difference. The Lawbringer's voice was sharp. And now you have returned, after all this time. Sirius smiled, because the leash is breaking. Ethan exhaled slowly. What does that mean? Sirius stepped closer, stopping just a few feet from Ethan. It means the enforcers can't contain you anymore. You're waking up. And they know it. The warden that chased you through the rift. That was just the beginning. More will come. They will burn every last trace of you. Ethan's jaw tightened. So what? You're here to help me now. Sirius smirked. I'm here to give you a choice. The same one I had. Ethan frowned. And what choice is that? Sirius spread his arms. Submit or fight. Ethan's pulse hammered in his chest. He thought about everything that had happened. The colony destroyed because of him. The enforcers hunting him. The visions of war. The power awakening inside him. And now, standing before him, was the man who had once made the choice to kneel instead of fight. Ethan clenched his fists, golden light flickering in his veins. No, he wasn't like Sirius. He wasn't going to kneel. He was going to fight. Ethan lifted his gaze, meeting Sirius' burning golden eyes. You chose wrong, he said, and I won't make the same mistake. Sirius sighed, shaking his head. I hoped you'd say that. Then, he attacked. The air exploded as Sirius lunged forward, his energy blade forming in a flash of golden fire. Ethan barely had time to react before their blades clashed, sending a shockwave through the ship. The Lawbringer moved instantly, his own weapons drawn. The battle for humanity's future had begun. Ethan's transformation. The ship shook violently as the first blades of golden fire clashed. Sparks erupted between Ethan and Sirius as their weapons struck again and again, sending shockwaves through the dimly lit chamber. Ethan gritted his teeth, his muscles straining against the force of Sirius' attack. The older warrior moved effortlessly, his strikes calculated, each blow designed to push Ethan backward. Ethan had never fought like this before. He had brawled, he had survived, but this was a battle against a warrior who had once led humanity's greatest armies. And Ethan was losing. Sirius twisted, his foot slamming into Ethan's chest, sending him crashing into a bulkhead. Ethan gasped as the air was forced from his lungs, his vision blurring for a moment. Sirius didn't give him time to recover. He closed the distance instantly, blade raised for a final strike. You fight like a child. Sirius said coldly. You have power, but you don't know how to use it. Ethan's hands burned with golden light. His instincts screamed at him to dodge, to move, but his body felt sluggish. The power inside him. It was there, but it was locked, refusing to fully awaken. Sirius swung, and the Lawbringer intervened. With a flash of blue energy, the Lawbringer's twin blades intercepted the attack, the impact sending a concussive blast through the ship. Sirius was forced back, skidding across the floor. The Lawbringer didn't hesitate. He lunged forward, his movements flawless, each strike delivered with precision and force. Sirius parried, countering smoothly, the two warriors moving so fast they were almost blurs of motion. Ethan struggled to his feet, his head pounding. His armor was still reacting, adjusting, but it wasn't enough. He was slower than them, weaker. I can't keep up. The thought burned in his mind. He clenched his fists, his breath coming in ragged gasps. His body wasn't at its limit yet. He knew that. But something inside him was holding back, and he needed to break past it. The locked power within. Ethan closed his eyes for a split second, blocking out the sound of clashing blades, the ship's alarms, the battle raging in front of him. Instead, he focused on the energy within his veins, the same power that had awoken in the rift. The golden light, it was waiting, sitting beneath the surface, restrained. Why? The answer hit him like a thunderbolt. He was afraid. Afraid of what would happen if he fully let go. Afraid of becoming the monster he had seen in his reflection. But now, as he saw Sirius overpowering the Lawbringer, as he saw the enemy that had betrayed humanity once before about to do it again, Ethan knew he had no choice. With a deep breath, he let go of the fear. The moment he did, everything changed. The evolution of Ethan Kane. The golden light in Ethan's veins erupted, bursting from his body like a sun being born. His armor shifted, the liquid metal rippling and adapting, fusing with his very essence. Symbols, ancient runes of a lost human empire, began appearing on his gauntlets, his chest plate, his blade. They pulsed, as if alive. Ethan felt it, the full power of what he was meant to be. His mind expanded, his perception sharpening. Time itself seemed to slow. The battle in front of him, once too fast to follow, now felt predictable, as if every movement was already laid out before him. Sirius turned just in time to see Ethan vanish, and then reappear in front of him. Before Sirius could react, Ethan's palm struck his chest, sending a shockwave of golden energy blasting through the ship. Sirius was hurled backward, smashing through a reinforced wall. For the first time, Sirius looked, surprised. Ethan rolled his shoulders, feeling the new energy coursing through him. He met Sirius' gaze. "You're not the only one who knows how to evolve," Ethan said. Sirius wiped blood from his lip and grinned. "Good. Now this is a real fight. The last war begins." Sirius charged, his speed matching Ethan's now, but Ethan could see his movements before they happened. He sidestepped, spinning and countering midair, his blade crashing against Sirius with an explosion of golden sparks. They fought like two titans, their blows shattering bulkheads, sending waves of force through the ship. The Lawbringer stepped back, watching with narrowed eyes. Ethan wasn't the same man from minutes ago. He had awakened. The fight raged on, neither giving ground. Sirius was strong, but he was also older, bound by his past choices. Ethan was new, unchained, unpredictable. And that gave him the advantage. Sirius lunged, his blade aimed for Ethan's heart. Ethan saw it coming. He moved faster than thought, his blade shifting mid-swing, not blocking, but redirecting. The force of the maneuver sent Sirius stumbling. That was all Ethan needed. He stepped forward, his hand grasping Sirius' armor, and unleashed everything. A blast of golden energy erupted from Ethan's core, a force so strong it sent shockwaves rippling through space itself. Sirius' armor cracked, his body slamming into the farthest wall. He collapsed, struggling to breathe. Ethan stood over him, his own energy still burning bright, his transformation complete. For the first time in his life, Ethan knew exactly what he was meant to be. And he wasn't afraid anymore. The final choice. Sirius groaned, struggling to rise. He looked up at Ethan, breathing hard. "Well," he said with a faint chuckle, "looks like I was right. You're stronger than I ever was." Ethan's golden eyes burned. "And now you're going to answer for what you did." Sirius exhaled. "That depends. Are you going to kill me?" Ethan hesitated. The power wanted him to, demanded justice. But killing him wouldn't undo the past. Instead, Ethan clenched his fists. "No." Sirius raised an eyebrow. "No. You're going to help me end this war." The Lawbringer stepped forward. "You trust him." Ethan shook his head. "No, but I don't have to, because I'm not going to let history repeat itself." Sirius smirked. coughing. "Then I hope you're ready, because the celestial enforcers won't stop. They'll send more, stronger ones." Ethan turned toward the viewport. He could already see it. The celestial enforcer armada was coming. This was it, the final battle. Ethan flexed his fingers, feeling the power within him, feeling the strength of every forgotten warrior before him. He was ready. The final battle and a new beginning. The void of space trembled. Beyond the viewport, an unstoppable force was coming. Dozens, hundreds, thousands. The celestial enforcer armada stretched as far as the eye could see. Massive black warships, their sleek, dagger-like hulls blotting out the stars. Their presence weighed down reality itself, as if space itself was protesting their existence. And at the center of it all, a warden. No longer just a shadow on the edge of the rift. This time it was here in full force. A towering colossus of dark energy, shifting and bending, as if it had no real form. Its core pulsed with a violet-black radiance, its very presence an anomaly in time and space. It had come for Ethan. And he was done running, rallying the last survivors. Ethan turned from the viewport, his golden eyes burning. His body still thrummed with the power of his transformation, the rift's energy now part of him, no longer a mystery, no longer a burden. He turned to Sirius, who stood beside the Lawbringer, watching the approaching fleet. "You've fought them before," Ethan said. "How do we win?" Sirius smirked. "Last time, I surrendered." Ethan didn't blink. "That's not happening." Sirius sighed. "I figured you'd say that." "All right then, if we want to stand a chance, we need to fight like the humans we once were." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Meaning?" Sirius' smirk widened. "We don't fight fair." The Lawbringer stepped forward. "There are others." Ethan turned to him. "Others?" The alien nodded. "Survivors. The last remnants of your kind. They are scattered, hiding, but they will fight if they know there is hope." Ethan clenched his fists. Hope. For the first time in centuries, humanity had a real chance, and it was up to him to ignite the fire. A call to arms. The ship's communication systems roared to life, broadcasting on every frequency across the known galaxy. Ethan stepped forward, staring into the transmission feed. His voice was calm, steady, unshaken. "To every human who still breathes, to every forgotten soldier, every outcast, every survivor, the enforcers are coming. They took our history. They erased our name. They hunted us until we forgot what we were. No more. This is our last stand, our final war. If you can hear this, it's time to come home." The message was sent. Now all they could do was wait. But not for long. The battle begins. It started with a single light on the radar. Then another. Then 100 more. Warp signatures erupted across the system. Not the cold, uniform precision of the Enforcer fleet, but something chaotic, human, powerful. The lost warriors of Earth had returned. Old ships, modified freighters, exiled mercenaries, rogue pilots, all of them answering the call of their people. The Enforcer fleet held its formation, unshaken. They did not see humans as a threat. That was their first mistake. The second was underestimating Ethan Kane. Ethan stood at the center of the command bridge, his golden-lit veins pulsing with power. He turned to Sirius and the Lawbringer. "Let's end this." The command was given, and the war exploded into motion. A war unlike any before. The first exchange of fire ripped through the stars. Enforcer ships unleashing a wave of energy lances, cutting through space at impossible speeds. But the humans were not helpless. The first wave of rogue battleships activated their modified shields, deflecting the Enforcer's opening barrage. Then, in unison, they returned fire, launching unconventional, unpredictable counterattacks. EMP bursts, warp disruptors, graviton mines, weapons built to fight enemies stronger than them. Tactics that didn't follow rules. And it worked. The first Enforcer warship shattered under a hail of plasma torpedoes, its sleek black hull cracking apart like glass. A ripple of shock spread through the Enforcer formation. They had expected a massacre. Instead, they had walked into a war. And then, the Warden moved. The towering, shifting entity descended into the battlefield, its very presence warping spacetime, making weapons malfunction, engines falter. It raised its massive, amorphous arm and struck. A single devastating wave of dark energy blasted through space, erasing everything in its path. Ships vanished instantly, their very matter unwritten from existence. The Enforcers didn't need an army. They had the Warden. Ethan felt it before it struck. A pulse in his chest, a warning. And for the first time, he understood his purpose. He wasn't just here to fight. He was here to break fate itself. Ethan versus the Warden. Ethan launched himself from the ship, his body glowing like a star, streaking toward the Warden like a comet of golden fire. The moment he got close, the entity reacted, 1,000 shifting tendrils of dark energy slashing at him. Ethan dodged effortlessly, his new power accelerating him beyond light speed perception. Then he struck back. His blade formed in an instant, no longer just a weapon, but an extension of his very will. And for the first time in history, a Warden screamed. Ethan sliced through it, his golden energy tearing into the anomaly, unraveling its form. The Warden twisted, writhing, its dark mass frantically shifting, trying to adapt. But it couldn't, because for the first time, it had encountered something it could not erase. Ethan was beyond its reach. He was no longer bound by fate. With one final, unstoppable strike, he tore through its core, sending a shockwave through the battlefield. The Warden collapsed inward, its existence shredded, its power dispersed into the void. The Celestial Enforcers hesitated. For the first time, they felt something foreign to them. Fear. And then, as one, they fled. A new dawn. The war was over. The Enforcers were gone, their fleet shattered, their ultimate weapon destroyed. The survivors, humanity's last warriors, drifted among the wreckage, staring in awe at what had just happened. At Ethan Kane, he stood there, floating in space, his armor glowing like the birth of a new star. And in that moment, Ethan knew. He had rewritten fate itself. Humanity was no longer lost. They were reborn. Sirius stepped beside him, looking out into the void. "You did it," he muttered. "You actually did it." Ethan exhaled, a small smile forming. "Not just me." The Lawbringer nodded. "You are now what you were always meant to be." Ethan turned toward the horizon, the stars brighter than before. A new war was over. A new future was beginning. And this time, nothing would erase them. The last guardian of humanity had returned.